A Seamer, Steward #1, very conveniently on it, and it's dated the 13th of September, 1913. So that shows Arthur was on board, and there was even a picture of him as a member of the crew. And Arthur is marked here with a cross. But then a fateful date. The ship was sailed back and forth between London and Australia, and on the 12th of October, 1914, shortly after the First World War had broken out in August, it was requisitioned by the Australian government as a troop ship. Quite a lot of Aussies had volunteered to fight in the First World War, and they needed ships to get them there. So Arthur finds himself in Australia in October 1914 without a job. The ship itself became the HMAT, His Majesty's Australian Transport A32 Themistocles, and Arthur's out there without a job. So he goes off to a mining village called Bullaroo, which is Aboriginal for place of many flies. And then in 1916, he decided to enlist with the Anzacs, the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps. Actually, the date of this talk is really quite appropriate, because last Sunday, the 25th of April, is known as Anzac Day, and it's a national holiday in both New Zealand and Australia. Arthur kept a diary of his journey over, and this is an extract from that. He had quite neat writing, and he came to England on what was called the HMAT 30 border, and it went from Sydney to Durban, South Africa, Cape Town, South Africa, Sierra Leone on West Africa, and then up through a very rough Bay of Biscay, landing at Plymouth on the 9th of January, 1917. The journey had lasted 85 days. So having landed at Plymouth, he then went from camp to camp. And he notes in his diary that one held 1 million men. It's difficult to believe the scale of this operation. And on the 7th of May, whilst he was AWOL, absent without leave, he wrote a will, leaving money to Adeline Guidotti, my dear and beloved friend. And this is the first mention of Adeline in his documents. Adeline was 15 years older than Arthur, married with 2 children. So, and yet they had obviously formed quite a friendship. So Arthur sailed to France on the 8th of May for pre-combat training at a notoriously tough training camp at Étaples. And then on the 7th of June, he entered the front line at the Battle of Messines Ridge, a very famous Battle of Messines Ridge. A bit more about that later. What you see on this schematic map is Arthur's time in World War I. He started in May 1917 at Messines. And this is where the Allied forces had tunneled under Messines Ridge, filled it with thousands of tons of explosives, and then under the enemy lines, and then at 3 o'clock in the morning, they were exploded. That was the 10th of June, and the enemy was in absolute disarray, and Arthur was part of that attack. He then, having been in that area in Messines until August, he had a delightful break in a small village called Libourg in September, but in no time at all, he was back in the front line, at Passchendaele, which is a notorious for its battle. It was tremendously muddy, and they were up to their knees, up to their waist even at times in mud, and trying to fight in those conditions was really very difficult. But in October, Arthur fought at Broodseinde, where he won the military medal. So I'll just go on to that. And here I still have Arthur's medals, and this is his medal on the left-hand side here with the red, white, and blue ribbon attached to it. As you can see, they look as though they've been much worn. I'm sure they were. Anyway, Radio Tees read out the citation during the broadcast.
Now, Arthur fought in the First World War on the Western Front, and his bravery in battle saw him awarded the military medal. Listen to this description of why he was so deserving of that medal.
The post occupied by Corporal Seamer's section was almost entirely levelled by shell fire. Working with feverish energy and exhorting his men to even greater effort, he re-established the post under intense shell fire. He then patrolled throughout the night to the posts on either flank, a duty of no mean danger and difficulty as the night was intensely dark and the enemy shell fire extremely heavy. He was twice buried by shells and severely shaken, but begged to remain in post. He set a splendid example throughout the tour.
Yes, they didn't mention in that reading that there was also the threat of poison gas, and most of the time they had to wear very uncomfortable and very primitive gas masks.
Now, Arthur fought.
So this is Arthur on the right-hand side here, wearing, this is the, you can probably see that ribbon, that's his military medal ribbon. With two colleagues, both they're also Anzac troops. The uniforms are typical Anzac, but I've not been able to identify who they are. That would been a very nice thing to do, but I have been unable to do that. Anyway, Arthur, having won the military medal, had a fairly quiet time. And was actually even able to get back home to the UK in January. But by February, Arthur was back in Europe, repelling an enemy attack at Ypres. So and then later on, on the 24th of April, the Germans attacked in force and took the town of Villers-Bretonneux, which is sort of in the southeast of that, you'll remember, and the commanding hill on which it stood. And at 10 p.m. that night, 2 Australian brigades and a British brigade launched a massive counterattack and regained Villers-Bretonneux. The 13th Battalion, that's where Arthur's battalion, spent the ensuing days helping to defend the town from further attack. Villers-Bretonneux is important because in 1938, a memorial was opened at Villers-Bretonneux to the 11,000 Australian troops for whom there is no known grave. When you think of it, 11,000 that they couldn't account for, it makes you realize the horrendous scale of this war. Arthur and his wife were invited to that opening. So May and June were fairly quiet, but at the end of June, Arthur's 13th Battalion was joined by 244 men of the American 33rd Division, and they also had 60 of the new Mark V tank, because tanks prior to this have been pretty unreliable, but the Mark V proved to be much more reliable than the rest. And they got the feeling that something big was about to happen. And this was the Battle of Hamel, which was a big inroads into the enemy troops. And amongst Arthur's possessions, I found this map, and it's dated 24th June 1918. And it's the area of where the Battle of Hamel was fought. But you notice anything? There are these brown stains down the middle. This is a map that Arthur was carrying when he was shot. It's a miracle that it survived. Someone must have kept it for him. I just get this strange feeling that things were being put to one side for someone to find, and that someone happened to be me. If you home in on that map, this is what the line on the left. This was the original front line, and this is where the 13th Battalion were. They came through Quarry Crossing and advanced about 2 kilometers in less than 2 hours. I think it was 93 minutes they took, which was quite remarkable. Anyway, Arthur had been out to the enemy trenches that morning, and they were empty. Then he went back in the afternoon, and some enemy troops had come back in. And Arthur was shot from below ground level by a bullet that went in under his left chin and out his right cheek near his right eye. And it's amazing that he survived, but he did. And there you will see this rather hazy photograph. I think it might even be a double exposure. This is clearly Arthur in hospital a day or so after he was shot. It's absolutely amazing that he survived, even that this postcard photograph survived. So Arthur then, this was the end of the war as far as he was concerned. So he was then went through this period of hospitalization, plastic surgery, St. Dunstan's, which was the war-blinded charity, and then discharge from the Australian Imperial Force. That went through the period September 1918 to 1921. Quite amazingly, I found this card, and it's dated 9 July 1918. And it's just it's to his mother, just a card to let you know I've just arrived in Blighty, Blighty being the UK. I will write again as soon as I get in hospital to let you know where to write. Love, from Arthur. Now, this is like his normal handwriting. And yet I thought he was totally blind. It's amazing that card has survived, but it has, and it's written, and the date is 5 days. He was shot on Independence Day, 1918. Amazing. He must still have had some sight, and he was very well looked after in a hospital in Birmingham, in Edgbaston. And there are there were letters there written to his mother that literally brought tears to my eyes. And I'll just read you this one. Your son is in much the same condition as when you left. He's been quite content and fairly cheerful. Today we had an eye specialist to see him, and I'm sorry to say he decided that your son has lost the sight of both eyes. This is a great blow both to him and to you, but I hope and trust that your son will live to be thankful that though sight is denied to him, and therefore many of life's pleasures denied him, there still may be good days to come and something in life for which he is spared. Now, I found that incredibly moving. And that is just one of several letters that were written to his mother by the nurses in hospital, and they have survived. So Arthur then went from the hospital in Birmingham to the Queen's Hospital Frognall in Sidcup, which is down in Kent, in southeast England. And this specialized in plastic surgery on wounded soldiers, particularly those who had been wounded in the head. And it was led by a pioneering plastic surgeon called Harold Gillis, who had to invent the techniques to help these people recover from their horrendous injuries. So I warn you, the next shot is pretty gruesome. So this is Arthur in Queen's Hospital, Sidcup, 16th of October, 1918. The bullet that did the damage went in there under his left chin, through his mouth, broke his jaw, mangled most of the inside of his mouth, destroyed much of his nose, and had left a big hole in his right cheek. It was horrendous, an horrendous injury. And when you see it sideways on, it just makes you realize what a mess it was in. It's amazing that he survived. And yet, when you see a picture of him before he was blinded, Dr. Andrew Bamsey, who is the archivist for the Harold Gillis Archive, wrote a book about the war blinded or the war injured who were treated at the hospital, and said it was perhaps a blessing that Seaman was blind, because if he could have seen himself, it was, he would have been obviously absolutely horrified. So Arthur was treated in Ward 16 at Queen's Hospital, Sidcup. And amazingly, I sent this picture to Andrew Bamsey, and he said, "Oh yes, there's Arthur. He's fourth from the right." And I've circled Arthur there. And the quality of this print was apparently much better than the one that Andrew Bamsey had. So I'll be donating these to him later. This is an example of the technique that was used for plastic surgery. The main problem with doing a big skin graft was if you took it off, it soon died. And so the secret that Harold Gillis developed was a tubed pedicle. And they would waltz the pedicle. They could even get, a graft from the chest to the face by looping it over a period of time. So in this case, they'd taken a great mass of skin from Arthur's forehead, kept one end connected, and put the other end round to where they were going to do a graft on his nose. They'd rebuilt the nose using bone and cartilage from the ribs, and that's the technique they use. Amazing that technology, really. And I'm very grateful to the Royal College of Surgeons of England for providing me with these photographs. And this is a picture of how Arthur looked later in life after the surgery was completed. His nose is still a hell of a mess, but at least he's got a decent set of dentures. He had no eyes at all. Both had been taken out, so there were just holes there, just cavities. But wearing these dark spectacles, they certainly gave the impression that he had eyes. They were very distinctive. In Arthur's papers is this document, which I think is the only one that exists in the world. And it's of a sports day that they held at the Queen's Hospital on the 28th of July, 1921. And this will go to the Imperial War Museum in due course. It's Dr. Andrew Bamsey, who I mentioned, knew that there had been a sports day, and he had been sent many years back a cup that had been presented to a New Zealand competitor at that day. He didn't have the program, but someone found a trophy in, I think it was on the edge of a riverbed in New Zealand, and sent it to him. Amazing. Arthur then went to St Dunstan's. There was a place in Regent's Park in London, and they did a remarkable job of rehabilitation, teaching him to type and to read Braille and this sort of thing. It was called the House of Miracles. And then we'll just very briefly go into the love story of Arthur and Adeline, 1921 to 1949. Arthur, there was not much correspondence between them early on. And then there's this card dated February 1921 saying, "Dear Arthur, you can guess how I feel and who I bless, yours Ad." And according to the electoral registers in the UK in 1921, Adeline was still married, still living with her husband, but and the two children, two sons. But quite clearly, she had this relationship with Arthur, and that kept up, even though he was horribly disfigured and blinded. In Arthur's service record, which is a certificate for discharge, you'll see here, this is dated August 1921. She signs herself Adeline Seamer, though at this point she is still Adeline Guridotti. She is still married, and yet she chose to sign herself Adeline Seamer. So she left her husband, went to live with Arthur. They bought a bungalow on the Thames near Eton College, just outside London, and they called it Anzac. Shows her the importance, that the connection to the Australian New Zealand Army Corps that Arthur had. And there they are on the bungalow of the veranda. And the St Dunstan's Review in 1925, St Dunstan's being the blind charity, commented that Arthur was, sorry, I'm going too far, was kept a wonderful garden. And quite clearly that was the main thing that he did for the rest of his life. So they were unable to get married. They hadn't, Adeline hadn't divorced. And then in Arthur's papers, I found this letter, Commonwealth of Australia, dated 23rd January 1941, saying, "I have to thank you for your letter of yesterday's date, noting that you were married on the 31st of August, 1940. Amazing, all these letters were just kept. And I did a bit of research, and Adeline's husband died in May 1940. So they wasted no time in marrying. And this letter really explains why Adeline stayed with Arthur. And there's a commentary on this.
May I thank you for your heartfelt article, Thoughts, in Daily Herald, Wednesday 11th. I cannot express myself beyond saying I thought it beautiful. I trust you will be interested to know that I have my man with me, and am very grateful that I have been able to look after him myself since he left hospital in 1921. He was blinded in the war in July 1918, being hit by an explosive bullet. He often passes the remark, "A land fit for heroes to live in. They promised us. Where is it?" Even when travelling in London, should the train or bus be crowded, he is seldom offered a seat. If he is, it's usually by one of my own sex and middle-aged. Have people forgotten? Callous, selfish, but they merely gaze and stare at his disfigurement. I feel at times disgusted with my own countrymen, but it has helped to give me more self-reliance to do what has been given me to do. Hoping I am not encroaching upon your valuable time in writing you this letter, and again, thanking you for your understanding thoughts. I beg to remain yours faithfully.
Yeah, I wasn't able to discover whether this letter was ever published in the paper, but
May I?
and Adelaine sadly got cancer and died 9 years after they were married in June 1949. And the vicar of the church where in Raisby very kindly sent me this photograph of Adelaine's grave. It must have been very, very hard for Arthur. So he's now on his own. He moves initially to Uxbridge, very lonely there. And then he moved to a bungalow very close to where we lived in a village called Egglescliffe in 1967. And this is Arthur standing outside his bungalow. And you can see he's got his interest in gardening. He's bought these various pots with him. He used to cut his lawn by starting in the middle and literally with a pair of shears and go round in circles until he got to the edges. He was very, very determined to do his own thing. He came to live in Egglescliffe because relatives of Adeline, I think they were after his money, persuaded him to come and live near them in northeast England. But once he moved up here, they did absolutely nothing for him. So my wife and I were very glad that we at least were able to do things. And so that's when I inherited the contents of this bungalow and the chest full of papers. And so was able to put together this life story. And it's gone into a book called Arthur and Adeline. And any profit I've made from that book is being donated to what was St Dunstan's and is now Blind Veterans UK, the war-blinded charity. And the book seems to have gone down very well. Some of the comments have been quite amazing. I had one just recently from my old college, Magdalen College, Oxford, and the librarian said, it's a beautifully put together volume with a poignant story that brought tears to my eyes, a splendid addition to the library's shelves. So that's it, folks. Thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed your talk, and thank you very much for inviting me to talk to you. At that point, I'll stop my screen sharing.
Dennis, thank you very much for your time and for what you've done. I'm playing with my, there we go. Now I can see people again. Thank you for what you've done and for expressing it. This, like I said, this is the second time I've heard this, plus reviewing the videos, and it's still, the story still is fresh. It still gets to me. So we do thank you much. I don't know if there's any questions from the audience. Mitch, I'll let you decide. Otherwise, we will just continue on with our club meeting, and then Dennis, yeah. You're welcome to stay, or if you've got something in the afternoon you need to do, go for it. So thank you very much, sir. You take care. We'll stay in touch.
Our president, Vivian Holmberg, by the way, sends her greetings to you. It's her president's night tomorrow night, but unfortunately, it's all got to be via Zoom.
Yep.
So all the very best to you folks, and thank you for inviting me to talk to you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Take care, sir.
Okay, bye.
Okay, Mitch, it is back over to you.
All right. I'm going to stand behind the camera here. And with this, I'm going to bring Todd up. All right. I'm tied to a cord, so I have to be in this area. So somewhere.
I could be in this area then?
Yep.
Perhaps. It's not very often that we get to recognize one of our members for reaching 50 years of membership in Rotary. If I make it 10 more years, I might be able to get there, but we're very happy today to recognize Bob Courtney for his 50 years of membership in the Overland Rotary Club. That puts in April of 71. Yeah. And Bob wanted to commemorate the event by making a donation to reach the major donor level 3 level of Rotary Foundation giving, which is accumulated $50,000 of giving to the Rotary Foundation. And the foundation has sent us a lapel pin with 3 diamonds on it, signifying the be bad for me to drop this. Probably break. Why not? And a beautiful crystal that is engraved as well. And of course, those gifts are going to work all around the world, helping the Rotary Foundation with polio fighting and all the scholarships and grants that we do. And Bob, thank you very much, not only for your membership, but for your strong support of our foundation over the years. I'll say a few words. It's kind of interesting when you look back over that time. We as a club at that time were meeting at the Overland. Started, the club started in 47. We probably went there in 49. But we had about 50 members at the time. And I think the interesting thing this morning is Fletcher Wells Sr., his dad, was part of the Overland Rotary Club.
Yeah. Yep.
What was our club like then? What was the community? The community like? It was completely different. And we had 4 members from Home Federal. We had 6 members from Community Federal. Bank of Overland. Our business was there, and what's happened to us is we all kind of migrated west. Home Federal went to Mason Road. Community Federal went to Pear. My business went basically from Overland to Westport. I spent 20 years, not more than about 10 blocks from here in Westport, at a store in Westport. The club, it was interesting at the time, it was 1971. My son was born in 73. There was another fellow named Roy Pelster. We each had babies at that time, and I don't think we've seen that in the club. And most of the time that you people have members. So
Mine were born.
Well, you were born, so yours is late. But anyway, it's kind of interesting to see. And the things that we would meet it, we had these women who cooked lunch for us, and they were excellent meals. And they decided to quit one time. We were all worried, but we got another set of cooks that were actually better than the ones that we had. So there was members of 50, a completely different community, but things have evolved, and we're lucky to be even a club today. Bob Kassoff succeeded me in probably about six years earlier than that. Yeah, he said this morning he thought he was only a member about 30 years, but actually he's been a member longer than I have. So it's kind of interesting when we look back at that and see how it's changed. Actually, it was interesting when Bob started his dental practice, it was actually in a building where we started our office supply store.
Really?
What year did you start your dentistry?
What year I started practice?
Yeah.
I got to think about that.
Well, when did you graduate from dental school?
That's a good question.
But anyway, we were kind of in the same building there, we moved out to St. Anne. So anyway, it was interesting. I appreciate what you've done. I think we've done a great job in supporting the Rotary Foundation. Our first Paul Harris Fellow was actually Bill Robards, who we gave one to, I think, at our 50th anniversary celebration. I can remember collecting checks. I had one guy writing a check on the fender of a car out of the parking lot in Overland. So we've come a long way as a club in supporting the foundation, the things we've done around the community. Some of you may not realize this, but back in the 60s, there was a person who needed a kidney transplant, was on dialysis. And the club, in conjunction with the district, actually bought a machine for that purpose per person in their home. to have their dialysis training. It was a substantial thing at that point in time. So there were a lot of things we've done. We supported the Athletic Boys Club 8 years ago. You know, all we've done for the school district. You know, so we all should be proud of the fact that what Rotary's accomplished. And thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Just want to thanks to everybody for coming this morning. It's good to see everybody face. So good to have you with us, Fletcher.
We're gonna meet in his backyard next time. Still get your coffee.
I'm skipping a jump, right? We'll ask Julie. If everybody's open to it, we're welcome to meet here on a regular basis. Wanted to clarify one thing. I'm sorry for, we're just kind of learning this stuff. So your $5 that you spend when you come in the door, you can spend up to $5. So if you're getting plain coffee, you can have a cookie, you get $5 worth of stuff. You just have to spend at least $5. So we'll clarify that for future.
Could I share something?
Yes.
Becky had a niece who had a 40th birthday at what was the place? It was Russo's place on Cottleville.
Yeah, the Piazza Messina.
Piazza Messina, a beautiful facility.
Yes.
So anyway, one of the Russos was walking around there, I was talking, and he told me that they have taken the facility over there and they put a wall up where they
I just saw it yesterday.
And they put all things in for Zoom meetings and everything else in that room.
They have a big conference table in the middle of the room, so it only holds like.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it's their tasting party
Okay.
for wedding catering and all
it
that.
becomes a problem for us to
So
do.
if we were, it'd be a great place for a conference, like our board meeting. But we couldn't get more than 12 people in that room now.
But, yeah, limited.
And they are closed. The cafe is closed. It's, when I walked through, it was in disarray on the cafe side. So they're still not open. He said they'd have to find some help for the union. Think about opening that.
Close to the interstate here, major highway.
Yeah. So I was thinking for, at least for the short term.
Yes.
If everybody's okay, we can just meet here. If, something to input, are you guys comfortable with just paying as you go, or would you rather be billed? Because they'll do it either way.
Probably just pay as you go. And still-
I thought pay as you go, just kind of a new concept.
Still keep it the same.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I give $5 and get nothing. Would they be happy if I brought my Yeti with the great?
I'm sure.
Okay, because I love, this is awesome. That's like 2 bills worth of calories. Get it black and there's hardly anything.
There you go.
Color black decaf.
I think Tom has socks today.
We're opening opportunity socks. These are doors.
This is the logo here.
Oh, and I was wondering.
Rotary Open Stores. Brian. Yep.
Because so pretty excited. For those of you that don't know, that my son Mike Lensko, he got into it. So. But anyway, he's the burden is off his shoulders now for that. So it's got another burden in school now.
So he starts in the fall?
He starts July 26th, I think, something like that. So
Dave, are you still with us?
I am.
And I see that Heather has joined us again this morning,
That is correct.
right? Very good. Welcome, Heather.
Hi, Heather.
Welcome.
Hi, Heather.
Hi, thank you.
You know where we're at now?
In person?
Ask a stupid question, get a stupid answer, right?
No, there's no stupid question.
Mitch, can you give the address and such so people will know?
Sure.
What's our address?
2075.
What is it?
12075.
12075 Dorset Road.
On the north side.
North side of Dorset, about a half a mile east of 270.
it-
Zion Lutheran Church is the big sign.
Google Maps.
Yep, Zion Lutheran Church, and it's higher grounds. It's in their lower level.
Right.
Yes, I would go. I have two young ones that I actually have to get ready for school now. So I would be there if the time allotted it. But I'm sorry, I'm here.
We like, that's why we're gonna do this Zoom and in person. So I know Jack Williams was on the Zoom call also, so. Morning, Jack. Maybe he left.
No, I'm here. Good morning.
Oh, hi, Jack.
I'm here too. Good morning.
Oh, hi, Ruth. Very good.
Join us when you can.
Very good. Otherwise, we will keep this going. Yeah.
I would mention if we're gonna be here, if you guys are gonna be here, to maybe leave like the first 4 parking spots open for the regular clients who buzz in and out.
Okay.
I mean, it's a guy who comes here all the time. Because they have a Bible class here later today. And a lot of those people will grab those spots too. It becomes inconvenient for the
Patrons in and out.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. So I won't set the example by parking in the very first spot.
If you're gonna hang around all morning.
It was raining. All right.
Board meeting next week? Yeah. right?
Yeah. Do we want to meet in person? Do we want to, you guys good with meeting here? I'll tell them. I will learn to turn my notifications on to next week before we fire this up. So we had to do 2 devices to be able to do 1 video and 1 sound and not get feedback. So, I think it works. All right. So we will, good to see everybody. Pretend like it just rang the bell. Enjoy. Yeah, it's right.